All right, so let's come down here. Let's start with the name components, right? How do we do that? All right, we've done this a number of times by now. We did it with the televisions. We then did it again in a better way, a little more developed way with our UCI scripts, because in the UCI script, we made use of having that externally configurable box. We need to take that same approach here. You remember what we did in the UCI script for this? We wrote a function, and that function gets called when. That function gets called at startup, and that function gets called every time we change the string in the box. So let's write a function. Let's call it function func set code name. All right, because we opened it, we closed it, and we're going to call this thing dev cam. And do you remember the function call that we need, Nate?
The autofill might help me here. So we're going to do devcam equals, is it component?
Yep, component.
Tab dot new.
Dot new.
Yeah.
And notice, right, here you are, component dot new, and it tells you got to stick in the name.
Yes.
And what is the name?
It is the string of the text field that we made that someone else is going to type into.
You got it. All right.
And is that in a parenthesis?
Yeah, because it's the argument of the new function.
That makes sense.
All right, so controls dot
text camera code name.
Yep, dot string. Perfect. And then we are going to run that function
whenever the event handler for that text camera code name goes.
At startup.
And yes.
Yes. And for sure, controls.textCamCodeName.event handler. And we'll do that cool thing where we pass the variable, not the function. Yep, there you go. So just like that.
Okay, so that establishes the name component.
Yep, sure does.
All right.
Now we're ready to start our for loop. But remember what we just said. We are, much to Nate's chagrin, because Nate's right, we could, right? Because it is indeed unlikely that we're going to need more than one timer and more than one flag. But I like the simplicity of building an array of timers and an array of flags. That way, each individual preset button has its own timer, has its own flag, and then I don't have to worry about the interplay of the buttons, okay? While it's unlikely, there are technically some edge cases where that might become an interaction, and it's just easier to just give everybody their own. So let's do it. All right, how do we make an array of flags?
Oh, we just make an array. We say array of flags equals open close brace or squiggly brackets.
You got it, squiggly brackets.
Oh no, what have you done to me?
Our flags equals squiggly brackets.
Or within the squiggly brackets, we can just give 3 variable names we want for these flags, couldn't we?
You could, but you don't need to.
Okay.
Yep, trust me, we'll get there.
We're just creating the array and then we're done right now.
Yeah, we're just creating the array and we're done at the moment.
Lovely. Then we're gonna do the same thing for our timers.
Yep.
We're gonna make an array of timers.
You got it.
We're gonna call it array of timers.
You got it. Array of timers.
Okay. And we're just going to open and close it and leave it?
You got it. Yep. So if you're keeping score, lines 29 and 30 simply create 2 empty tables. We reconstructed 2 empty tables, and we pointed at them with the name R flags and the name R timers. We haven't populated them at all yet.
But in the loop, we're going to create an entry into each of those based on the iteration of the loop.
You got it, right? So let's do it. All right, line 3, Nate, for every preset button in array.
So for?
What kind of loop you want to write?
Well, so that's the question. It could be a for loop. Well, we just do it 3 times, but we don't want that because that's too definitive.
Mm-hmm.
We want Well, we could do it that way if we do it for 1 through, and then we do a length operator on the array.
We could. Or we could just use our simple I-pairs loop, because the I-pairs loop takes all of that into consideration.
Got it.
All by itself. But I really do love where you were going with thinking I could totally use a numerical for loop and go to the length operator. Perfect. That really is a great way of thinking about it. But we can simplify the syntax by saying for I, comma, CTL, because remember, YI, it's an index. YCTL, these are controls. They are buttons.
But mine's still going to be for I, comma, Nate. So they're just, I mean, that's the title of my autobiography. I, Nate.
Great.
That's just that, it's accurate.
Right. There's I, Robot, and now there's I, Nate.
And it was I, Claudius, too. That was also a good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. For I, Nate, in I pairs.
Yes. On.
In parentheses of the argument of the array of controls.
Yes. BTN preset.
BTN.
Yep. For I, comma, CTL in I pairs on the table called controls.btn preset, do the following.
And we don't need the brackets in BTN preset.
Correct.
Right?
Remember,
right.
autocomplete gives it to you.
Okay.
And in my little mind, I keep saying, right, when I type it in controls.btn preset, it gives me the brackets, and I'm like, I want all of them, not just one of them, so I delete the brackets.
Right. Okay, we're going to do a thing.
We're going to do a thing. Okay?
But then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to scroll down to the bottom, and we're going to write end.
Correct, because we opened a chunk of code, we need to close the chunk of code. All right? So.
Okay, the first thing on our list was to create a global variable for the flag. And that's an array of flags. So we're going to.
Let's see if he nails this one.
Okay, so we're going to say array of flags bracket I is equal to, and then we'll give it a name, right?
No, not a name.
We're just making it on or off. We're just going to turn it off. When we create it, we want it to be off.
Sure.
So array of flags I equals 0.
False.
Or false.
Yeah. What we did is we created key number 1 has the value of Boolean false. We don't need to create a variable name. Our flags bracket I is getting us to the true or false that we care about. Okay, it doesn't need a different name. It's effectively a variable, but we don't need to name it. It is a position in the table. So there we go. This is cool. And this is fine. It's perfectly fine to have this line. Okay, so what's the next one?
Okay, then we're going to create a timer.
Yep.
So that way, so similarly, array of timers.
Yep.
Bracket I.
Yep.
Will be equal to. Now we have to name the timer to create the timer.
The same idea, right? You're
too far. So we just do timer.new.
It's just timer.new.
Open close parentheses.
Yep. Because once again, we have an array, and in the first entry of the array is this timer. Does it have a special name? It doesn't. It just has its position in its array. And it's wonderful. It's great. And look at us. We are writing code that is abstract yet exact. And we are leveraging loops, and we are leveraging data structures. We really are putting it all together. All right. Cool. We've got a flag. We've got a timer for every button in its loop. There we go.
And now we're defining the event handler of the timer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Now I can see that would be, so we've got to pull out what's in array item number 1 dot event handler.
You got it.
Woo. So literally it says, so it's array of timers bracket I dot event handler.
You got it.
Ooh, jeez. Dot event handler equals a function.
Yep.
Open close bracket, dot, end the function.
Yep.
And inside that function, all we're doing is we're setting the flag to be high. So that means that we're saying array of flags I equals true.
You are catching on.
And that's the end of the function.
Go back to the plan.
And then stop the timer.
Stop the timer.
And then so that would be, boy, the same thing. It would be array of timers I, and then we're doing the method.
Yes, the method.
Which is just stop.
Stop.
Just stop.
And remember, it is a function, so it's open and closed parentheses.
Done.
Yeah. Okay. Now,
Okay.
by the way, at this particular moment, Nate actually doesn't know this script. He actually is literally writing it in real time, applying all the things that are been shoved into his brain over the duration of the filming of this class. I really want you to see the power of taking the time to think through and write out what you're trying to do, because once you have a game plan, then you can shift gears and start thinking about the syntax. Because those are two different things, especially when you're getting started. It's really great to be able to separate those two steps. Let's figure out the game plan, then let's figure out the syntax. You are watching Nate in real time execute that game plan. Go ahead.
And knowing the game is critical to making the game plan. Like at the top of this class, we or I wouldn't have known to break them down into these particular steps because we wouldn't have known what Lua is possible at each step, right? But now that we've learned the game, we know which steps we need to break them down into. That's the most important part, is knowing what's possible so you know how to create your path.
Mm-hmm.